Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to the 11th episode of Tea with Tea. Depression is a bitch, and I've talked briefly about, my struggles with depression and anxiety, and this is a point in my life where I'm very comfortable with my depression and my anxiety, and I know how to work with it, and I know how it works, and we've got a bit of an understanding, like a gentleman's agreement, you could say. And unfortunately, I am currently dealing with more than just my normal set of depression and anxiety, unfortunately. I have my postpartum depression on top of my normal depression, and then throw in seasonal depression, which, FYI, is a real thing. We had a couple weeks of, overcast and, like what I always thought would be like my ideal time to live. And it would be if it weren't for the other two kinds of depression. Like if I had my regular depression a little more under control and I didn't have my postpartum, then seasonal depression would not be as bad. But unfortunately, Mercury's in retrograde, so everything's against us right now, guys. I have decided to be easier on myself. And that's the biggest takeaway for this episode, guys. Be kind to yourself. Take it easy and just realize that not everything is within your control, and sometimes we just have to give up the ghost. So I am still planning to do the sex ed for grown folks segments, but I'm going to spread them out. That way I'm not stopping myself from recording episodes I want to record simply because I haven't finished the thing I started. That's something with ADD, I won't always finish everything I start, but as long as I finish it eventually, that's what's important. Plus, it's also really hard to not data dump on you guys about all the things that I've researched, and this is how the vagina works, and this is what that does, and this is what that does, and then I'm trying to give you a verbal GPS of where the parts of the vagina and vulva are located. It's really hard without pictures, guys. So that's something that will take some time to work out, but I'm still doing those things. But today, we're just going to talk about depression, anxiety, my struggle, my life. Quite frankly, that is one of the reasons why I decided to get back into recording instead of just shelving everything that I want to do because it's not what I thought I'd want to do. Seasonal depression is a thing. That's why in parts of Alaska, in places like Seattle, or even people who are just super sensitive to not having enough vitamin D and sunshine, they have lights that they put in their house, and you have to spend so many hours a day or so many hours a week. I feel like I would do it daily. Just keep those demons at bay to make sure that you're not just going to spiral out. Because, I love the sun. Who doesn't? The sun is why we're alive. It's one of the reasons that Earth is a habitable planet. We all love the sun. But I'm also someone who's hot-blooded, and I'm always sweating and wishing it was colder. So that's one of the reasons why I always figured that I would absolutely love it to be cold and rainy and overcast all the time. As a kid, when I found out that Seattle rained most of the year, I was there. I was ready. And then come to find out, I learned what seasonal depression is. And I realized, okay, I could combat it with lights. I could totally do that. Spend my evening reading and get under my lights, no problem. Spend my day freezing cold and rainy. I'm living. But again, if I wasn't dealing with the other two parts of my trifecta of depression, then I think I could do it. Now, postpartum depression is something that, I always thought was going to be this huge, dangerous thing. But like all other depressions, it's a sliding scale. It's a spectrum. I'm not going to hurt myself or my kids. I'm not suicidal. I don't have any suicidal ideations. I just sometimes feel like I'm failing. And mom guilt is a thing. But I think as a society, we have taught new mothers, and you're always a new mother because you've never been a mother to multiple children before. So I've never been a mom to 2 kids before. So I'm a new mom. Boom. That's how it works. And I find myself comparing what I do for Xander to what I did for Charlie a lot. I find myself comparing what other moms do or what I think I should be doing. And with juggling school and the kids and all this stuff, I often feel like a lot is falling through the cracks. And it's not my fault. I mean, I'm a human being, and I can realize that, I can rationalize that, I can internalize that. But there's still this little depression gremlin in the back of my head who's like, yeah, but you're also kind of a piece of shit. And I'm like, touche, gremlin. Really, the biggest thing with postpartum that I'm learning is that as long as the boys are happy and I've kept them alive, there's really no other requirement. There's no other requirement. There are parents who are absolute trash, garbage, human beings, never should have been given a child, let alone leave the hospital with the child. You think they have any guilt about what they do? Some of them may do. Disclaimer, they might. That's neither here nor there. The fact that they are a parent does not make me less of a parent because I can't do the things that I want to do. I can only do what I can do when I can do it. And the boys, they're 5. They're barely 1. Like, they're not holding that over me. They're not going, Mom, what the fuck? You should be doing more. Why the fuck are you not, like, hand mixing all of my foods? Like, Charlie's got celiac, and I act accordingly. I sought that diagnosis. I got the confirmation. I've changed his diet. I've changed so much to make sure that he's healthy and happy. That makes me a good parent, whether I agree or not. And sometimes I think I'm a great parent. And then other times that mom guilt morphs into something more. And postpartum depression is like an amplification of normal mom guilt. That's long story short. Mom guilt is a normal thing. I mean, especially as women, society is constantly telling us to put the burden of everything on our shoulders. It's saying, you should be doing more. You should be doing this. You should be doing the emotional labor. You should be doing that. And we're trained through society and through media and, even movies and television. Like, those are all telling you how you should be as a wife and as a mother. And the reality is, those people aren't even like that. Like, oh, look at this celebrity. She's back to her pre-baby weight a week after giving birth. And it's like, yeah, but she's got nutritionists. She's got trainers. She's got a nanny full time. She's got stuff where she can just literally focus 100% on herself if she wants to. As a normal human being, I have not seen a gym in years. And I stand by that. I stand by that decision. Sometimes you wake up and you're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to knock laundry out. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get that done. I'm going to cook this great dinner. And then you blink and it's 3 p.m. and all you've done is chase the baby around with one sock and you've done maybe half a load of laundry. By half, I mean it sat in the washer for 6 hours and you're thinking you may have to rewash it. That's what I mean. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that's just where you're living. That's how you're living. And you just got to be okay with it. Because what is beating yourself up going to accomplish? Is it going to turn back time? If you could harass yourself and turn back time, then I would say do it. I would say bitch it out. But you can't. If you can, though, can you call me? Because I have questions. And that's another thing that I struggle with. My blaming, my self-blaming. That's another thing that my depression exacerbates. Instead of me just saying like, oh, okay, well, c'est la vie. I can say c'est la vie, and my body language says c'est la vie, but my mind is in meltdown. Like, holy shit, you fucked up, bitch. You fucked up bad. And then it's just like a bunch of yelling and But I am working on it. And really, it's kind of like, when they do meditation mantras. And, in the moment, like when you're first trying it, you're like, why would I repeat the same thing for 10 minutes every single day? That's literally what I do day in and day out. I don't do it for 10 minutes straight, but like I've got a handful of things that I repeat to myself every day just to keep me going. And that's what works for me. Journaling sometimes works for me. Lately, it's been really hard because I'm smothered under so many things, but the semester's almost over. And in the same vein of doing things because you want to do them. Yesterday, a couple friends and I were texting, and we pointed out that, like, living better and doing better, quote unquote better, it's whose better are we trying to get to? Because, whenever we're like, oh, well, I just want to eat better. Oh, I just want to look better. Blah, blah, blah. You are trying to strive for a better that you don't even have outlined. And I pointed out, like, it's just a lot of suffering to be something that you're not even sure that you want to be, or you don't know till you get there what it is. We're already here to suffer. Like, that's literally a pillar of human existence, suffering. Everyone suffers. That's, like I said, it's a pillar. It's something we all have in common. And, when a little kid decides that, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. I'm going to sit in front of this mirror and I'm just going to make funny faces. And like that entertains them for like an hour. Great. They are doing that thing just because they enjoy it. There's no rhyme or reason. And I think as adults, we are trained out of that. We're trained out of do something because you enjoy it, just because you enjoy it. That's it. We're trained, well, you could use that time for something else. You should do this. You should do that. A hobby? You don't have time for a hobby. You should be working more. Or you should be doing this. You should be doing that. And it's unhealthy, like so many of us have shelved dreams and likes and hobbies for the sake of being quote unquote better or quote someone else, quote the new me. And to what end? I mean, if you're happier, great. If you genuinely feel like you're a better you, not just a better someone, then fantastic. Hats off to you. For me personally, that is not the experience. So I've been doing a little soul searching and kind of like going through my mental timeline of who was I when I felt the most me? And just kind of going back through, like the greatest hits of Therese. And that's definitely one thing I recommend everyone do. Don't just like, oh, I'm going to go through Facebook on this day. No, just like genuinely deep dive. If you have old journals, read through them. Just go through and find what the constants are in your life. The 5 things or feelings or hobbies or emotions that continue to pop up day in and day out, year over year throughout your life. Find those things and then do them. For me, performing has always been this huge constant in my life. From a kid, making little plays, little dances, little performances, to TV production in high school, dance throughout my life. Really, it's always been something that I've done in at least one outlet, usually multiple at a time. And really, I've kind of shelved that because like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to get a job, get an office job. Oh, you need to get a degree in something that's real, not in theater. And it's like, here I am doing none of those things. And I'm not any happier than I was when I was doing them. So then why did I stop doing them? Now back to the beast of depression. It's different for every person. Obviously, some people do get anxiety. Some people don't get anxiety. Some people get really tired, lethargic. Some people get really frenetic. Some people get hungry. Some people are just food's not a thing. Some people, they escapism. Other people, they hobbit hole up. It's different for everyone. A lot of my depression circles around guilt and suffering because of that guilt. Like, I feel like I'm not good enough to have nice things, so I don't give myself nice things. But then that turns into my anxiety demanding other nice things and me giving my anxiety the secondary nice things to make up for the primary nice things that I neglected to give myself. And it's this whole convoluted cycle that really there was no reason for me to make myself suffer in the first place. But my depression has convinced me otherwise. So that's kind of a big thing for me to realize. And a lot of my therapy lately has been around refocusing my attention. So like I mentioned earlier with mantras and, little motivational quotes. Some people think, oh my God, this is so smarmy. People already know this. Why do people keep quoting this? I heard that a year ago, blah, blah, blah. There's no reason to be negative. Not everyone knows everything that you know. And even then, people who do know it sometimes like the reminder. I know that I should not have to tell myself 10 times a day, one foot in front of the other, one thing at a time. You can only do what you can do when you can do it. But I need to. Someone else, they may be able to read that once and be like, all right, cool, got it. Other people, they've never heard that. They just let their pressures overwhelm them instead of saying, listen, I'm going to break this down into smaller things and deal with the smaller things. They just get themselves so overwhelmed and overworked that they burn themselves out, whether that's on purpose or just sheer not knowing. That's neither here nor there for me. That's theirs to deal with. But I know what I need, and I'm relearning how to give myself those things. And really, that's all we can do. A big part of therapy is figuring out what you are not getting and then learning how to give those things to yourself. And, that's any kind of counseling. You learn, this is what I need. This is how I give it to myself. Let's just connect the dots. Or this is what I am dealing with. Here's how we'll work through it. But also sometimes it's unlearning coping mechanisms that we have taught ourselves to survive. I mean, the human brain is this magical, terrible thing. It will literally rewire itself to work around traumatic things, or it can rewire itself to behave differently in the face of certain stimuli. Fight or flight, that's biological. And some people's anxiety is linked to their fight or flight because of traumatic incidents in their youth. For example, some survivors of domestic abuse, their anxiety becomes intertwined with their fight or flight response. So anytime their anxiety level starts to creep up, they get that same palm sweating, hyper-focused, heart-pounding feeling of, I either have to get out of here or I have to prepare to fight for my life. And it may be something as simple as, standing up to introduce yourself to a new class, or a sudden loud slam of a door in a parking lot, and it can trigger them into fight or flight simply because that's how their brain has rewired in the face of what they've been through. So a lot of times my personal anxiety and depression becomes like hypercritical, like a stereotypical disapproving Asian mom on like steroids in the back of my head all the time. And, it's not always that, but when it's bad, it is that. It's this whole chorus of, this is what this person thinks of you, and these people could do better, and these people are doing better, and those other people think that you're crappy, and they don't care about you. And really, one thing that I have learned over the course of my life, and after repeating for a long time, is now something I don't have to repeat anymore, but it's the fact that what other people think of me is none of my business. And that takes the burden off of me of, what does this person think of me? Am I doing enough in their eyes? Because frankly, it's none of my business what they think of me. What's important to me is what I think of me. And really that has helped me so much. In my youth, my self-esteem was poor. It was very poor. And I got a lot of my self-worth based on what other people thought of me, which, in hindsight, that's probably a big part of why I loved performing, because it was a very tangible representation of what people thought of me. The applause, the cheers, the viewing, oh, you did a great job. Like that was something like, okay, this is something that's good about me. And it was something that I was very hefty and I could like hold it. I could hold those moments, as opposed to like this really vague at the time it was vague, feelings of self-worth. Like, no one can explain to you what self-worth is until you discover it for yourself. So once I found it for myself, I realized, okay, then I don't need to worry about what other people think of me because I think this of me. And that's been instrumental to me becoming present Therese versus the Therese of my youth. So I have new mantras that I have to teach myself because, you know, it's not an issue of self-worth anymore. It's an issue of, well, really, when it comes down to it, is there anything other than self? No. So right now, it's not an issue of self-worth or self-esteem. Right now, it's, you know, mom guilt. It's women guilt. You know, as women, like I said earlier, we are under a lot of pressure to just do all of the emotional labor for everyone in our lives. And I shouldn't have to. I don't have to. And relearning that, especially in the face of being a new mom or a newer mom, is the fact of I don't have to do what other people think I should do. I mean, sure, there are some guidelines like the American Pediatrics Association saying don't give a baby honey because they could be susceptible to botulism that's in it on the off chance that there's botulism. Cool. That is something that I have to do. Understandable. But I don't have to wrap my baby up in some crazy Afghan made out of cashmere because it's what's best for the baby. No, I don't have to do that. My son walks around in usually a diaper or sometimes like an open onesie because after I changed his diaper, he was like, all right, well, I'm out of here. And that's fine. He's well fed. He's taken care of. He's loved. That's the important stuff. That's all I have to do. And I just have to be a pillar of support for him and his brother. And I do think that having my own struggles with depression and anxiety are setting me up to be the support system that they may need should they come across anything like this as they grow up. You know, if they struggle with ADD or anxiety or depression or, you know, body dysphoria, anything like that, then that's something that I can help them recognize and help them work through. So I'm trying to always see the positive in it. Like, at least I'm going through it so I can help anyone else who's going through it as well. Because that's another thing that I've always, you know, had in my corner. Helping someone was another way for me to get self-worth. Oh my gosh, you're such a great friend. Boom. Points to Therese. Oh, you're such a great listener. Boom. Points to Therese. But also, like, as a counselor, like, I am all about just wrapping you up in a blanket, tell me all of your problems, lay it all on me, like the ABBA song. That's also something as like an empathetic person that I've always struggled with, the unhooking my horse from someone else's cart and just remembering I don't have to be someone's emotional catch-all. If I choose to be, that's one thing, but I am not obligated to be just because they want me to be. Tips that I have for dealing with, you know, whatever you want to call it yourself, the blues, feeling kind of melancholy, just sad, or, you know, just overwhelmed. You don't have to call it depression if you don't want to. Some people feel like, oh, if I call it depression, then it's self-fulfilling prophecy and I'll make myself depressed. Because if that worked, honey, I would have worked myself out of this depression about 10 years ago as I was falling into a deep spiral. But that's a story for another time. So some tips from me that have worked over the years, or at least I can attest to seeing them work in others. Number one, therapy, counseling, seeing a specialist, these sort of things. If you don't want to do that, that's 120% fine. But I always feel like I'm doing a disservice if I don't remind people that that's an option. Seeing a therapist is not shameful. It's not embarrassing. They are a professional. And one way that you can think of it is they are not only a soundboard for the things that you say, but they also help teach you how you should be talking to you, which was huge. The first time that I saw a therapist and they said, but why do you think that about yourself? And I was floored because I was like, well, I mean, because that's just how it is. And they're like, but why are you talking to yourself this way? I was like, I've just always talked to myself this way. And then they reminded me again, but where did you first learn to talk to yourself this way? And I was like, oh, wow, probably my childhood. And they were like, okay, so this was not something that you taught yourself. This was something taught to you by experience. And now you in turn are perpetuating this. And then this was the next thing that they just floored me with was, why don't you talk to yourself how you would talk to your best friend? That seems simple, right? Like, that's not like groundbreaking until you do it. And then you realize, holy shit, I really am an asshole to myself for no reason. And, some people are like, oh, well, me and my best friend call each other bitch. Like if that's what you guys agreed to, that's fine. But you would never tell your friend, you're a lazy piece of shit and you're good for nothing. You would never say that. You would say, I know you're having a hard week. Why don't you treat yourself to an early bedtime? And then in the morning, we're going to wake up and we're going to fucking kick ass. Do you see the difference? How I used to talk to myself and how I used to view myself was unhealthy. But I didn't realize it because, quote, that's the way it's always been. So for a professional to look me in my face and say, but you don't have to do that. Whew, mind blowing. So again, therapy is always the first option. But some people can't or won't. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. All I can do is continue to remind you guys, therapy is an option. So then option 2, obviously confide in your close friends. If you don't have at least one friend that you can say, listen, I'm struggling and I just need to talk to someone, then you need new fucking friends. If you don't have a single person in your life you can talk to like that, fucking email me. We will chitty chat this out. But you should have at least one friend that you can say, I don't need you to fix this. I just need you to hear me. And just lay it all out. And then when you're ready for them to help you fix it, great. But remember, they cannot fix it for you. They are just there to help keep you on track so that you don't fucking implode from keeping it in. And they're there to remind you that you are completely valid in feeling the things that you're feeling. Another option, writing it down. Now, I know that toxic masculinity has really made it not a thing for men to keep journals anymore, which is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. But for a week, write down everything. Write down what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what things happen, how you felt about the things that happened. If anything didn't happen and you were disappointed about it, write about that disappointment. Write about every feeling you feel. And then after the week, read back over everything. Some of the things you'll still feel the same about. Other things you may not feel the same about. That's how you start to learn the differences in the things you feel, the hierarchy of your emotions, and then you start to pick out patterns. Do it longer. Definitely do it longer. But if you can only start with a week, for whatever reason, then just do it for a week. But you've got to learn to separate yourself from your emotions because what you're feeling is not who you are. Again, another thing I learned in therapy. The things you feel are not who you are. I am depressed. No. I have depressed emotions. Yes. We'll come back to that. So writing everything down helps you separate yourself from the emotions, helps you gain perspective on the things that you maybe were really upset about, but then after a week you're like, I really am not that bummed about it anymore. And that's another thing. Over reading old journals from like years ago, the things that absolutely gutted me and I was certain like this is the end of the road. Like I'm never coming back from this. I was like pleasantly surprised, like, oh, I had forgotten about how like intense that was at the time. But now, years later, like I could care less. And that is super, super important because again, it helps you to regain the handle you have on your emotions. You're learning, yes, this emotion is big and it feels overwhelming and it feels like I can't get my arms around it. And that's fine. I may not be able to right now, but in a week, in a month, in a year, I will be able to. And sometimes just being able to see that the road continues ahead is the first step. Number 4, make a playlist. I have several emotion-based playlists that I have curated for myself for when I need to feel a certain way, or I just, again, as a Cancer, I'm a crier. Any chance I get to cry, I am taking it. So I have a very long playlist for crying. Cool. I also have a playlist for like, ooh, look at you, bitch, get it. I've got one of those. I've got one of those, like, I call it my work that shit out playlist because it's A, for working out, but also for like, we're about to go out. I want to get in the mindset of being single and flirty and ready to fucking party. Even though I don't do those things. But like, you know, when you're going out with friends and you just want to have that carefree, fun, like, let's do this vibe, I've got a playlist for that. I've got a playlist for a range of uses, and that helps me. Maybe you don't see the point in curating a depressed playlist, but curating songs that make you happy, like every time you hear them, you got to tap your foot, you got to sing, you got to dance it out. That can help you when you're just feeling a little bit blue, or you wake up and you're just like in this weird funk. Listening to that playlist can immediately boost your mood because, again, emotions, as awful as this may sound, emotions can be tricked. You can trick your brain into not being sad. But you cannot trick your brain out of a chemical imbalance. So if you're just feeling, sad, in a funk, kind of weird, then yes, you can jumpstart your brain right out of that. But if you're depressed, or that's not a thing. You can't do that. But it can help you, again, make the emotions feel more manageable. It can get you out of your head so you don't spiral and wallow, and it can just help you realize, like, okay, that emotion is going to sit over there, and I'm going to come to this other side of the table and do my thing for a little bit. That's fine. Next, find your coping mechanism. For a very long time, one of my coping mechanisms was staying so busy that I literally did not have time to acknowledge my anxiety or depression. Obviously, A, not sustainable in the long run. B, not healthy, but it helped me at the time. At one point, I had 2.5 jobs. I was doing school full time. I was in a play, which, if you've ever done theater, like those rehearsals all night, every day, woo! So like I would go to class, go to my first job, come to rehearsal, go to my second job. Then between the second job, I would sleep, and then I would wake up, go to my half job, and then go to class, and then go to my first job, and then rehearsal. And it would just continue. I got maybe, 10 to 15 hours of sleep a week. And I was the catnap queen. I was like, I got an hour between classes, let me sleep. Okay, we got a half an hour break in rehearsal, let me sleep. Oh, we're doing this? Cool, let me sleep on the drive. And that helped me, but it also set me up to fail. So now I have much healthier coping mechanisms. I set a timer, and for that, however long, hour, 2 hours, I am just entirely self-indulgent. I do nothing but read or lounge with my little man or meditate, whatever it may be. I just do that. I don't worry about any of the things that I'm stressed about. Nothing else exists for that hour or so. I'm just going to read trash. I'm just going to be a garbage can on Tumblr. I don't care what you do, but you have to have those recharge points, or else you're just going to grind yourself down. So if you figure out what helps you get through the stress or the anxiety, and you do it. Next, there are apps that you can use that help you meditate, help you calm yourself, help you avoid self-harm, help you relax, help you do breathing exercises. And I will include links to some of those in the show notes. Most of them are free, and really, it's like mind-blowing that these things exist because they are so useful. The fact that there is an app should show you that you are not the only person who needs these sorts of things or wants these sorts of things or even feels the things that you feel. And that's another thing that's super important, is to remember that you are not the only person going through this. You are not the only person who ever gets down in the dumps and sometimes can't find their way out. That's so important, because that's part of what depression's grand plan is, to isolate you so that you don't get help, so that you don't ever get better, so you don't climb out of the hole. Now, of course, we have to walk that fine line of a coping mechanism or escapism can now become the thing that you're replacing doing your responsibilities with. Again, I'm not a professional. These are not things that I am saying you have to do. These are just things that I do or I have seen other people do. And let's take it or leave it. I mean, taking the time to watch your favorite movie when you're feeling down is very different than I am going to do nothing but watch movies for 10 hours straight because I just want to avoid my life. Like, obviously. That's just like, I'm going to take an hour-long nap versus I'm going to take a 16-hour depression nap and then wake up, drink a glass of water, and then not do anything else but go back to sleep. Totally different camps. Moderation is key, but everyone's moderation is different. Moving on. You're fine. But really, I think the thing that's most important, if you take nothing else away from this, I need you to remember the following. Your meat suit requires food, water, sleep, sunlight, and kind words. Whether those kind words come from someone else or that come from you, you need it. So there you have it. Your assignment for this week is to write down 3 things that you let go of to the sands of time that you wish you hadn't, and make a plan to get back into at least one of them. As always, all of our social media will be in the show notes. Feel free to reach out anytime, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.